But thank you guys for being here. Everyone that's tuning in right now to our second Tune In Tuesday of the year. Today we are joined by a couple guests, which we'll introduce here in just a minute, to talk about the National Conservation Land System and then a specific spot in the system. From there, we'll have an opportunity to kind of open it up for questions from anyone else. But we're going to kind of do similar to what we've done in the past. We're going to have kind of a discussion style presentation. And if you have any questions as we're going through, if you'd like to type something in the side on the chat feature, we'll see that and make sure we get around to that. So a quick introduction, I'm Joe Offer, the Executive Director for the Friends of the Missouri Breaks Monument. And if you're tuning in, you probably know a little bit about the Friends, but we're a small nonprofit based in Helena, and we work around the Missouri Breaks National Monument to protect and preserve the monument through stewardship, advocacy, and education. And so today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about something that the monument is a part of, the National Conservation Land System. And the first guest that we're going to be speaking with today is Andres Esparza, who is the Grassroots Engagements Director for for the Conservation Lands Foundation. Andres, would you like to say something real quick about yourself?
Yeah, first off, just really happy to be here and joining y'all. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about what the Conservation Lands Foundation, or CLF, is, what my role is with it. But I would be remiss if I didn't start with the fact that we would not exist if it weren't for groups like Friends of Missouri Breaks or Friend of the Owyhee, or all the other groups that are on the ground and all the supporters who support their work. So we're here, we're doing great work because of the groups on the ground like Friends of Missouri Breaks. And thank you all for being here and joining us. And thanks for all your support of Friends of Missouri Breaks. You all are making a big difference.
Awesome. And then I'm going to go a little out of order from what I sent you guys. But then our other guest today is Tim Davis. And Tim's the Executive Director for Friends of the Iwahi. Tim, want to jump in a bit?
Yeah. Friends of the Iwahi, we're based in Ontario, Oregon, which is right on the Oregon-Idaho border. So far eastern Oregon, you could say. Boise is our closest metro area. It's only 50 miles away, so we're more or less Idaho in many ways. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, both of you, for being on this today with us, and thanks for taking the time out of your evenings to speak with all of us. So, Andres, I'm going to start with you and give you an opportunity to talk about what you do in the Conservation Lands Foundation. So the first question is just simply, what does the Conservation Lands Foundation do?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share a screen here that might provide some pretty pictures as I talk. So first, we always like to start with we're tasked with protecting a very important part of our public lands. In this case, it's the BLM system of conservation lands. And these are lands that span from the coast of California and the coastal monuments to Bears Ears, Grand Staircase Escalante, Missouri Breaks, soon to be the great wilderness of the Owyhees, and all of the other beautiful BLM landscapes across the country. And CLF, the Conservation Lands Foundation, is the only nonprofit exclusively dedicated to protecting those landscapes. And again, like I mentioned at the very beginning, we do this through our Friends Grassroots network, of which Friends of Missouri Breaks, Friends of the Iwahi are both parts of. But also, we do it because it's important, powerful work, not just for, like I say, the pretty rocks and the fuzzy animals and the big trees, but we do it for the cultural connections to these places, whether people have lived there for millennia, whether people go to recreate, go hunting, go camping or fishing on these lands. We protect them for people's connections to them, not to be put aside in some museum, but to be enjoyed by everybody. It's how we believe the good work needs to get done. And our values are fairly simple, and we can distill it into three things. We are grounded in community. We at CLF are headquartered in Durango. However, we're not going to parachute in and dictate what needs to happen in X, Y, and Z landscape. The work that needs to be done is done by the Friends Grassroots Network, and we simply assist that good work. We believe in collaboration. We believe that the only way we're going to win, especially in the rural West, is through collaboration. And sometimes that means not getting everything you want. And that's okay because we believe in the bigger vision of protecting land for all the right reasons. And we at CLF are risk takers by nature. If you get to know our staff, a lot of us are not risk adverse. We're willing to put ourselves out there a lot of the time because we believe that we need to stand up for and advocate for the things that really matter. In this case, it's public land protected for the good of everybody. So that's kind of a picture of who CLF is as a whole. We've been around for just over 10 years. We like to say we were born in the Obama administration. We've been through 2 different administrations now, entering our 3rd new administration, and through it all, we've had success, and we look forward to all the other administrations to come forward. So continue doing the work.
Awesome. And then, so Andre, something you mentioned was the Friends Grassroots Network. What is the network, and how does CLF facilitate that?
Yeah. So, like I said, we don't want to think of ourselves as people who parachute into a landscape and start dictating how success is going to happen and what it's going to look like and who's going to be involved. Instead, we really rely on what we call our Friends Grassroots Network, a community of over 80 nonprofit organizations across the West, and one little one in Jupiter out there, Jupiter Island in Florida, to really be our ears on the ground to let us know what's going on in the communities. Are there conservation opportunities ahead? Are there bad resource management plans coming down the pipeline? Are there areas that could be protected if we pull together the right coalition? And through our Friends Grassroots Network, which we fund through our foundational giving and capacity building support as well, we like to think that the work gets done by the people who are going to be in those communities once we have to step back a little bit, because we don't want to jump in, fix things, I'll put it in quotes, and then walk away and leave somebody who was never a part of that community to have to do with the aftermath. We want those people who live there to help dictate how we're going to protect this land, knowing that when we inevitably have to step back a little bit, friends like Friends of Missouri Breaks or Friends of the Iwahi who have community connections there, who are part of the community, are always going to be there to steward the land afterwards, bring people out, engage in education, and make sure the community is involved with all of these different landscapes. And so again, our friends operate across the whole country in amazing places. I mean, here we have Friends Group from a Gold Butte National Monument, which, if you're familiar with the history of public lands in the West, this is Bundy land. This is a group that deals with very contentious rural issues and is very successful in protecting the land, getting people out, and making sure that public lands are important and stay in the spotlight. They manage visitor centers. They take people out on hikes. They take school children out for some of their first outdoor experiences. When necessary, they advocate, but they're always the people who speak for the landscapes, which is really, really important. Again, getting people out, connecting them to these places, especially when we think about the cultural significance of a lot of these places. We look at the West, we look at the Southwest, and we realize that these are places that, like, I personally love to go climb and mountain bike and ski in, but they're also places that are home to ancient and current cultures. And we have to balance all that respect while at the same time recognizing these are public lands that have resources on them. And we have to balance all of those things at once. And we rely on our Friends Grassroots Network to be the people on the ground saying, this is how we can do it and balance it all moving forward. And then finally, when there are attacks, when there are issues that come up, it's our Friends Grassroots Network who is on the front line. Groups like Grand Staircase Escalante or Utah Digne Bequea, our friends at Cedar Mesa, are on the front lines of litigation, on the front lines of press releases, and getting elected representatives out on the land to talk about the various impacts that these landscapes are facing.
Awesome. And so, Anders, you mentioned that CLF was kind of born in the Obama era. Obviously, we're moving into a couple other eras now and have moved through. What's the future for CLF, and what do you see the future for the National Conservation Land System potentially being?
Yeah. So I'll start with a little bit of my role, because I think one thing that we're trying to do as we move forward is not just be reactive to situations, but think proactively. When I say born in the Obama, it's win-win-win. We went through the Trump administration where we were often on the defense, and now we're again put in that offensive seat. Something that we want to look forward to is continuing to build the capacity of all of our groups on the ground, so that the groups, regardless of what political administration or political climate we're in, are always able to do what needs to be done, whether it's defensive or proactive, making sure that groups on the ground anticipate what's happening so that they can respond accordingly. A lot of that is done through our Grassroots Advancement Program, and you all will probably get a copy of this, so I'm not going to go over this too much. Right now, we are still we're still fighting a bit of defensive, trying to get a lot of the Bears Ears and Grand Staircase and other monument issues under the previous administration. The rollbacks that happened, we want to get those repealed. We want to get ourselves back to our baseline. And as we're doing that, we want to be looking ahead at what's going to be possible. We want to be looking ahead at what's possible with the right partners, especially partners and communities that haven't traditionally been involved in the conservation movement as we know it. We keep looking forward, and we realize we've won in various administrations, and we're going to continue to win and protect land. But as we do it, we're going to have to change our vision a little bit. Gone are the days of just saying, I want to protect 5 million acres for the sake of wilderness, and that's it. We're looking at it in the global sense, realizing that the public lands that we protect can help mitigate climate change. The public lands that we protect can help preserve cultures. The public lands that we protect can help protect wildlife corridors. And especially as we've seen in this previous this year with the pandemic, the public lands we protect are good for people, for our mental and physical health. And we're realizing that protecting land is a holistic endeavor. We're going to have to think beyond just 5 million acres and dive into all the various ways the 5 million acres will create a better future. So as we look forward, we're trying to make sure that we're encompassing all the right views so that land gets protected for all the right reasons and for all the right people. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my screen share here and these pictures, and I'm happy to answer questions or turn it over to Tim. Joe, let us know what you need.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll turn it over to Tim now, and if anyone has any questions, like I said earlier, we'll have time at the end. Andres, if you're good sitting tight until the end, we'll just open up for everyone to ask questions then. So that's great, and thank you again. That's I can say from my experience, I've certainly gained a lot and learned a lot from all the stuff you've put on for the Grassroots Network, and it's definitely something that's really helped the friends out here at least. So it's been really helpful. So thanks. And so. Moving on, another friends group that is a part of that Grassroots Network is the Friends of the Iwahi. And Tim, I'll jump in and kind of get going. Can you give us a kind of a brief overview of the Friends of the Iwahi, a little bit about the area? I have to say, I grew up in Oregon, but I grew up in the Portland area. And growing up there, I mean, despite being in the same state, I know very little about the Iwahi, and I think there's probably a lot of people that feel that same way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was going to do a screen share real quick, share a photo while I speak on this behalf, but I'm trying to figure that out. Oh, there it is. Got it. Or it says host disabled.
Oh, Andres, would you mind popping Tim on the host there? That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right, can everybody see this awesome photo? All right, is everybody still there?
Yep, good to go.
Okay. All right, awesome. Yeah, so I'll just give you a brief history of kind of the area, kind of the lay of the land, everything. So the Owahi Watershed is a tri-state area. It is Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. So you can imagine that management and other aspects are difficult with these state lines in the way. So anyways, the watershed is 7 million acres. and the Iwahi region is roughly 8.5 million acres. Within the watershed, there's only 171 paved miles of road and only about 1,000 people that live in this watershed. So it's a pretty remote, desolate area. I founded the organization back in 2015 with the focus of getting locals out in their own backyard and show them how special this area is relating to the scenic beauty, but also the flora, fauna, geology, and human history. Many locals that I grew up around, they said, oh, there's nothing out there, but all they've ever done is gone up to the Owyhee Reservoir, which is at the very northern edge of the watershed, or drove Highway 95 down in Nevada. So I was getting the sense that nobody really knew what was out there besides the folks that lived in there, the 1,000 that lived there. So before I started Friends of the Owyhee, I was doing my own research, and I'll just share some brief tidbits of stuff I learned before I even started the organization. There's a very significant war between the US military and natives called the Snake War that lasted 4 years and killed over 1,700 people, something that's not spoke a lot in our school history lessons. This area was also the Yellowstone hotspot 15 to 17 million years ago as the tectonic plates have moved east and where it is today presently. There was a volcanic eruption 600 times larger than Mount St. Helens in this watershed 15 million years ago. There are 28 plants in this area found nowhere else in the world, and there's lava flows less than 10,000 years old. And I can go on, but to save time, we'll stop at that. So once I founded the organization, the board of directors formed. We got a little more focused on what the mission is for photo. And it is to promote conservation advocacy, stewardship, and recreation in the Owyhee region, with the vision of working collaboratively with conservation and recreation groups, landowners, ranchers, tribes, sportsmen, and government agencies to ensure the Owyhee unique ecological, cultural, and recreational experiences are protected for future generations to experience and enjoy. From founding to today, we've led hundreds of trips on the land. Last year alone, we've organized 72 outings with 508 attendees while still upholding state mandates related to COVID. We have a large following for such a small new organization. And we've got over 2,000 folks that follow us on social and almost 1,000 on our email list.
That's great. I have to say, Tim, I'm kind of jealous of photo. That's a nice acronym you guys have.
Thanks.
And so, kind of along the same lines. So it's obviously a huge area. What's the current management or protection like? And I know I will say I've been paying quite a bit of attention myself to that area. It seems like there's a lot of different things going on right now. What's the future look like as well?
Yeah. So I'm going to start back in time here a little bit from about 1960s, so about 70 years ago, roughly. There was talk back in the 60s of this area actually becoming a national park. But even further back, a name that you guys will be familiar up there in Montana with, Bob Marshall, he actually identified the Owyhee region as the second largest region with more than 4 million acres of interrupted roadless land spanning these 3 states. That was in 1936. In the late 70s, early 80s, after FLPMA, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, was passed, there was 1.2 million acres of wilderness study area created. Today, this is 9% of the wilderness study areas in the nation. Late 80s, there was 187 miles of waterway in the Iwahi that were designated as wild and scenic rivers. Then things get a little weird here. In 1989 to 1999, the military over in Idaho decided that they wanted to use the Iwahi as a huge bombing range expansion. Obviously, even the ranchers didn't want this. There was a lot of fight, and there was a middle ground found. And essentially, they're allowed to fly in certain areas in Idaho, 15,000 feet ceiling in Oregon and Nevada, and very limited window when they could fly in Idaho now. In 1999, there was litigation in Oregon that removed the cows out of the canyon lands of Oregon relating to the wild and scenic rivers. Also this year, the Clinton administration identified the Owyhee Canyonlands as a candidate for a national monument in 1999. Proposal of 1.2 million acres, which equaled out to about almost 600,000 acres in Idaho, 550,000 acres in Oregon, and just shy of 100,000 in Nevada was a proposal was put forward for national monument. In 2001, the BLM designated over 100,000 acres of land in the Oregon part of the Owyhee as in areas of critical environmental concern, or ACECs. I clicked that on here so you guys could see that as well. So in 2002, environmental groups started working on a plan to protect the Owyhee Canyonlands of Oregon. In 2004, an inventory of Oregon's Owyhee identified 1.3 million acres more of land that would meet the WSA criteria, or lands of wilderness characteristics. So you just showing on the map here all the layers that are starting to get here. So right now between
Tim, real quick.
Yeah.
I don't think we're seeing that map.
Oh, I thought I swapped over to it. So
quick heads up on that.
See if we can get it up. See if I figure out screen share again. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Let's do. Okay, new share. That's what I got to do. Sorry. I've never done screen sharing, so it's a kind of a new thing for me. Yeah. So can you guys see the map now?
We got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can see the blue area is the watershed area. I'll back up just to catch you guys back up. So WSA lands hit, that's all the WSAs in the Owyhee. Lands of wilderness characteristics that came in, and areas of critical environmental concern. So you can see the amount of layers in this landscape already. And like I said, 9% of the wilderness study areas in the nation are in this corner of Oregon. All right, so I got to get my notes back up here again. Sorry, this is a lot of information, I know. So let me go back. Also, okay, yeah, so 2009, Idaho, through almost a 10-year process of a collaborative group working together between ranchers and conservation groups, they were able to get legislation done and create 500,000 acres of wilderness in the Idaho part of the Iwahi. So 2015 rolls around. Well, I should back up a little bit further. There's already talks going in Oregon just after the wilderness area was created to really get the Oregon section created. 2015, there was a national monument push for the area for a 2.5 million acre national monument for Oregon. And that all ended because of Bundy's took over the Mount Hero Wildlife Refuge, which is right over here. So right next to the Iwahi, all political interest for a national monument to this area stepped away. So April 2019, getting up to modern time right now. Oregon Senator Wyden announced the formation of a coalition of ranchers and conservation groups to draft legislation to find common ground for the Owyhee of Oregon. This is meetings that I was a part of. So from April till November, we had meetings about once a week. It was a lot of work in 2019, but November 2019, S2828, Mount Hero Community Empowerment for the Owyhee was introduced, and for 1.13 million acres of wilderness. I'll get all these other layers off so you can see what that would look like and how it matches up to the Idaho wilderness. But also back to October 2019, right before this was introduced, the Air Force again wanted to expand use of aircraft in this area, and they wanted to fly 100 feet off the ground at supersonic speeds through Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. So you see some similar traits between what went on in the past in the 90s and early 2000s and what's going on today. So as it is right now, that litigation was introduced last session 116 in DC. It's going to be reintroduced by all words that we're getting. And then some other news to share on this call is last Wednesday, Senator Wyden also announced for a new wild and scenic river bill in Oregon for 4,700 more miles of wild and scenic river. And about 150 of that is in the Owahi Watershed, which would bring, just in the Oregon section alone, to about 340 miles of river as wild and scenic. And in the whole Owahi Watershed, it would bring it to 562 miles of wild and scenic river. In such a arid desert landscape, water is life, and it's important to protect these waterways. Yeah, there's a lot there, I know.
That's awesome. No, that's I love seeing on the map. That's a cool way to kind of show the history of all the protections. That's really cool. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. I know people are visual, so that's why I love using maps. So
absolutely. Well, and I have just kind of a quick question to go off that. I did notice. So there's protections and kind of, it seems like Idaho and Oregon are kind of the main drivers there. But
yeah.
The watershed does head down to Nevada. Do you work with Nevada?
We're working into that. Like the main focus right now is Oregon. That's where a lot of the driver seat is, but there is some WSA acreage in Nevada, and even talking with groups that worked on the process in Idaho, we all know that eventually we need to get the headwaters protected once Oregon's done too. So it's a unique watershed dealing with 3 states. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a pretty difficult thing to deal with, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Tim. And at this point, again, I'll open it up. And if anyone has questions, feel free to type them or turn on, unmute yourself and turn on video or not. Just feel free to ask any questions to anyone. But I'll start real quick. Andres, I'm going to put you on the spot with a quick question.
Yeah.
Outside of these 2 areas, what's your favorite spot in the National Conservation Land System?
Oh man, I feel like the cop-out answer is all of them. No, I can actually list 2 that I love. Bears Ears in Southeast Utah. It's a place that, again, culturally important, so significant in the public lands battle to protect land. But beyond all those reasons, I'm a climber and I love climbing. And there's a place in there called Indian Creek that is one of the most special places that I've been to climb, where you can be climbing in the spring in a t-shirt on beautiful sandstone, staring at a 12,000-foot peak blanketed in snow. And it's just an amazing, amazing place. Another one that's near and dear to my heart is down in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks. It's where I actually learned how to climb 20 years ago. No, wow, I've been climbing for a while, for almost 20 years ago. And when I went, it was just BLM land. And during the Obama administration, it was made a national monument. And it's kind of cool to have come full circle in my life, a place that I used to go to because there were no rules and you could do whatever you wanted. And we all learned how to climb out there, is now protected. And I'm actually working for an organization that was instrumental in protecting that place. That place is near and dear to my heart because it's been a part of my personal and professional growth over the past couple decades.
Awesome. That's great. That's very cool. And Tim, kind of a similar question of sorts. So Andres is a big climber. What's your preferred way to get out into the Iwahi and explore that area?
Oh man, all of the above. I'm not a climber or a mountain biker, but everything besides that. I mean, I own a Jeep, so I love going out and exploring new areas that way. But while I'm out there, I get out of the vehicle and do a lot of hiking. There's this area really has no designated trails or anything like that. So essentially, we just find a gully and hike it and explore and connect with the land while we're out there. Yeah. So.
Very cool. Yeah, I was gonna say I know as I've been back in Hawaii a couple of times, I've enjoyed fishing, and all sorts of fly fishing in those little streams is very cool, and I mean just that whole area is pretty amazing.
I might add on to what Tim said there because I think that speaks to kind of what makes BLM land so special. I mean, I lived for 7 years in Yosemite National Park, like the most iconic national park experience most people will ever have. And I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But anytime I go to BLM land, I feel like I'm discovering things on my own. There's something really, really, really special about not having an interp sign at every single junction and not having marked trails that allow you to only go to this spot, but the ability to go to landscapes where there are less people, there are surprises around every corner. I think that's what makes BLM so special, but also is part of our challenge in protecting it because it's not on postcards and on magazine covers all the time. People drive by and see it as similar to what Tim said. Oh, it's that desert. There's nothing there. And I think a unique opportunity we have with all our BLM land is that people can discover it for themselves. And that sort of personal discovery creates connections that no magazine ad, that no postcard can ever create. And that's kind of the beauty of the land that we get to steward, is that it's waiting for us to see it in our own personal ways. And I think whether it's on foot, with two wheels, on skis, or with a rope, like, these lands are special, and I think we get to experience that ourselves. There's something magic about that.
I absolutely agree, Anders. That's actually a great point. I will say I fell in love with the Missouri breaks when I came out on a totally unguided random canoe trip and fell in love with every corner, like you said, just turn a bend and it's totally something different, or hike a coulee and find petroglyphs. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, so you're totally right. That's I think that is one of the great things about BLM lands, and challenging as well. And so again, I'll open it back up. If anyone has any questions, please type them in, but I'll continue. I got just a couple other for you guys, and just keep kind of going along the same lines of, protecting the areas. Andres, what can people do? I mean, obviously CLF is a big organization as far as the geographic reach. What's something that someone in Montana or in the Iwahi, what's something that we can do to kind of help out or take part in CLF work?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think first and foremost, I'm glad my development director is on this call, because she would say, contribute to CLF, donate. Since they're not on it, I hope they don't watch this. I really think it's support your local friends group, because the work does not get done if local advocates aren't opening up their ears and listening to what's going on, having conversations in cafes with local elected representatives, and getting out on the land and getting other people with them. So like, no BS at all, really support your local group. They make the magic happen. But if you do want to support the Conservation Lands Foundation, you can go to our website, conservationlandsfoundation.org. But also, we as citizens who can vote, or even if you can't vote, we can pick up the phone and we can call our representatives if we feel there's an issue. We don't have to wait for something to become an issue to respond to. If you go to a place and you notice that it's being trashed, call the local BLM office and politely ask them what's going on and how you can help. If they say, hey, we don't have the funding because we're an underfunded agency, you can call your local elected representatives anytime and say, hey, I went to this beautiful landscape that my tax dollars go to protect, and I would like to see further protection. Contact your local representatives. They work for you. I think that's probably some of the biggest things that you can do for local landscapes. And again, politics is local. You don't have to go talk to the president or senators or House of Representative members. You can talk to your city council. You can talk to mayor. You would be amazed how much of what we hear about in the news at the federal and state level all starts with conversations with local county commissioners. So think local and act local. That's where the difference happens.
Yeah, thanks, and I promise I didn't tell Andres to say support your local friends groups, but Tim, I'm sure it's the same for you. And so Tim, and we do have a question in the chat box. We'll get to that in just a second. But Tim, kind of the same question for you. I mean, being in Montana or elsewhere, what can someone do to help out the Friends of the Owyhee?
Yeah, I mean, first off, we're a very new, young organization. So just like Andres was saying, donate. That's helps us expand. We're a rapidly expanding organization. But I think also beyond that, beyond the Owahi region, but all of public lands of the West, is exactly what Andres is saying. Speak out for public lands. there is some staffing issues relating to management agencies when you're able to bend a local, state, or beyond that political person. Let them know that you want to see your public lands taken care of. Yeah.
Awesome. I should say, you mentioned this before, I think Aaron else was on, but speaking of expanding, that's a new office you're in. So that's exciting.
Yeah. We don't even have our desk yet. I'm on literally a fold up table right now. So
Nice.
I think it's our first full week working in here. So
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, a question that came through was from Clem, and I assume I'm going to make an assumption here, Clem. Hopefully this is right. 5-year plan. So I guess kind of looking in the future again. So Andres, for you guys, kind of a little bit what you hit on, but anything else to add to that?
Yeah, so we actually just put out our new strategic plan, which is through 2025. So it's a spot on question. And I think there's a few things. I kind of hit on it earlier that we, like every other organization, have ebbed and flowed according to the political climate that we've been in. And we purposely set a strategic plan that extended beyond current administration because we don't want to be tied administration to administration, but we want conservation to be a bipartisan issue that we're always working on with all communities. So, I think 5 years is a good way to frame it because we can't think in 4-year increments or 2-year midterm increments. We have to think bigger than that. And as we think bigger about that, I hit on it earlier, but we've been talking for years, and now the Biden administration has rolled out their 30 by 30 goal for climate change, which for folks who are unfamiliar, it's a broad, big plan to save 30% of the land in the world globally by the year 2030 and 50 by 2050 to curb climate change. That is a bold, bold vision. But that's kind of where we're at right now. And we realize that the BLM lands are going to play a critical role in getting anywhere near that. And in order to do that, we have to start thinking about public lands and the ways that we're going to value them. We have to look at extractive industry and think about how do we scale back on negative extraction? How do we promote renewable energies while still maintaining livelihoods in the rural West? How do we make sure that land is protected and still available to be enjoyed by a lot of people? And how do we do all of this while advancing a conservation community that is truly representative of all of the population of the United States? We're looking at what communities have not been involved. How do we engage new perspectives? Because my personal thought is, if you involve everybody, you're gonna win. It may not look like the model of success that you have in your mind, but you'll get there. But if you're not including emerging populations, you're leaving perspective, valuable insight behind as you move forward towards a goal. So our 5-year plan is bold and big because we think that's the position that we're in right now. If we don't do that, we've lost before we've even started.
That's great. Thanks. And Clem, thank you for the question. And Tim, same question to you. And obviously you just mentioned you guys are expanding and really trying to take off. What does that look like in 5 years, I guess?
Yeah. 5-year plan. It's not too hard for us to look that far ahead, but also in some ways it's hard because, we've been a nonprofit for about 1.5 years. We started in 2015, but we got our nonprofit status in 2019. But right off the bat, our bread and butter of our organization is getting folks on the land. And by getting folks on the land, we lead a lot of advocacy trips, just getting folks out, learning what's in their own backyard. From that, we've expanded out and we are getting into leading youth programs now in the local landscape because, for an example, local outdoor school for our local school districts, they had the county that they're in is 74% public land. It's the 12th largest county in the United States, but yet they were going to the coast for outdoor school. So we're connecting them to what's out their own backyard. And we're actually now partnering with 2 of the 3 largest school districts in the county on this. On the outdoors, the youth program that we're doing. On that also is just, we're leading a lot more stewardship projects. We started a new project or program this year called First Saturday Stewardships, and it's just getting folks to get out and give back to their land. The BLM, again, is having struggles there, and nothing of the staff that work there. It's beyond that. But the lay of the land for this district, the Vail district, is their district office is in the very north section, and it takes 6 hours to get to the south end of their district. So we're stepping up and helping them out on data collection and monitoring, especially in that south end, because we don't have certain restrictions that they have. But also, we're still working on permanent protections of this land. That's a huge part. I mean, everything's leading back to that. Once we get permanent protections, we can't put a time frame on that, hopefully sooner than later. There's still areas that we need to work on in the Owyhee and monitor. Like I said, there's no trails, no trailheads, but there's a lot of people within this area that are using the area. I mean, the Boise region is one of the fastest growing areas in the nation right now. It's getting a lot of visitation. So how do we help BLM create opportunities and try to be reactive or proactive instead of reactive? Beyond that, we're looking as an organization to have staff focused on Idaho and Nevada and work on future protections in Nevada. And then we also have a couple large mines that are knocking on the door too, that we're working on getting more information about. So, yeah.
So, not a lot of work, Tim.
No, 2 staff and yeah.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. Real quick, a personal question, or I guess kind of my interest in the area. Do you guys work with Treasure Valley Community College often, being right there in Ontario?
The other staff member actually is an adjunct teacher for TVCC. He's a geology teacher there, but he's full-time with us. And so, yeah, and actually next week I'm giving a very similar presentation as today to a class at TVCC. So cool. Just about the history and connections, and yeah.
That's great. It's nice to have a school right there where you guys are. That's great.
Yeah, and being a national or a resource-based school between ag and ranching and everything else, so there's a great connection to all that.
That's great. That's great. Another question that just popped up, looking like kind of a question about organizations you partner with. And Andres, I know you have a lot here, so I'm just going to real quick jump to Tim, because I actually was wondering kind of the same thing. Do you work with first off, what organizations do you partner with in the area? But then also, I was wondering, the Morley Nelson Birds of Prey National Monument or National Conservation Area there.
Okay.
Work with them a fair amount?
We have a good, strong connection with them. We've never really worked on a full project together. We do keep each other kind of in the loop of things going on and communicate that way. But within the area, I mean, we're the only conservation-based organization in this county. It's focused solely only on the Iwahi. We have a lot of regional-based organizations that they do work in the Owyhee region, but it's not their only focus. So groups that we do partner with is like Oregon Natural Desert Association, Idaho Conservation League out of Boise. We're starting to work with Trout Unlimited, American Rivers. There's a large list of national or regional and national groups that we've been working with.
That's great. Yeah, I was going to say ONDA, Oregon Natural Desert's a great organization too. Very cool. And Andre, so similar question to you. I mean, obviously you guys kind of lead a lot of groups, but what other group? I mean, do you work with other kind of larger organizations in a way, I guess?
Yeah, and I think it speaks to maybe the power of the grassroots. I'll bring it back to that. But as a foundation, we operate in kind of a similar space, but like a different, if you can imagine like a Venn diagram, we operate in this bubble over here that like the Wilderness Society and Sierra Club and NRDC, National Resource Defense Council. I use a lot of acronyms in my work. A lot of big players, a lot of the big green partners, often we're working alongside them as we're thinking about campaigns and how we're going to work with elected representatives. And something that we have always from the beginning focused on, and often we become a broken record in these coalition meetings, is we're always letting these groups know, these coalitions of big greens, look, we definitely all have the money and the political power and the influence to be dictating this stuff. But if we don't have groups like Friends of Missouri Breaks or Friends of the Owyhee or any of the local groups, we're doing the same thing over and over again. So the way I like to think about our job is that we aren't, as much as I love talking, I love being on stage. we aren't the ones on the stage all the time. It's our job to, if there's not a stage, to go ahead, go in there, get our hands dirty and build the stage. Get people to the show, give away tickets. But when it comes time for the show to start, local players need to be on the field. People who live in those communities are the ones who need to speak. And often the people whose voices have not been heard are the ones who need to be heard first. And so again, we try not to be on the stage too much because we know that that stage should be reserved for the right people. So a lot of our coalition work is making sure that the right on the ground partners are pulled in all the time to make sure that those people have an equal voice as, you know, senior policy director at the Sierra Club when talking about landscape.
That's awesome. And I have to say, from working at a couple large national nonprofits, it did not everyone or not all the nonprofits feel that way, or the big green groups, not all of them do that. So that's awesome to know you guys push for that. That's great. And so that's all the questions I have, and not seeing any more in the chapter. Is anything you guys want to finish up with? Any final words? Any last thoughts? Tim, I know, I guess, do you have any big stewardship projects going this next year that if anyone has a chance to get out there, assuming COVID's all right and restrictions and travel makes sense, anything that we could get down there and help out with?
Yeah, like I said, first Saturday of every month, we are leading at least a trash cleanup. I mean, we adopted 4 miles of US 95 that goes through the area, even just right at the Oregon-Idaho border. That there's it's a large dumping ground there. But the lower canyon below the dam, we do a lot of trash cleanups. I mean, it's been about 1 a month already this year between our own and partnering with other organizations that are fishing groups specifically in that area. But also, just our advocacy trips. Like, we're leading multiple day trips a month and at least one multi-day trip a month, just getting folks on the landscape to get out and learn what's in this area. And right off the bat, March, we have a beaver expert coming and helping us talk about the importance of beaver on the landscape, birding and botany in April, and some cultural stuff in May. And in June, we're doing historical, following an old wagon route that went from McDermott, Nevada, all the way into Idaho. So by an overlanding by vehicles. So kind of a broad spectrum to learn what's out in this landscape.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, yeah, hopefully we can get down there and check it out. People on this call, I will vouch and say, not just that picture that you showed earlier, it's all so beautiful and also interesting. So
it's a very diverse landscape.
No kidding. Well, Tim, thank you very much for everything. And Andres, kind of same thing. I know you said the rendezvous is in 2022 in the spring, which I will say that was such a great thing. The last time I went to one of those, it was nice to connect with everyone. Is there anything big that anyone on this call should keep an eye on for CLF in the next in the coming months or this year?
I think we are unfortunately in the case where because we're not as local in one landscape, when we do things, it's bringing people together from all over, and that's the exact opposite of what we want to be doing right now. So rendezvous is the big thing we're looking to do spring 2022 to get all of our friends groups together to learn from each other, attend workshops, laugh, enjoy, and have fun. And something that I think, and that I'll end on for myself here, unless there's more questions, I really do think that the power of our public lands is personal. And I think the way that we connect with them is often through a mentor or somebody who takes us out for the first time. And I think that's what we can do right now, knowing that gathering huge amounts of people is not appropriate right now. What we can do is take somebody in a safe way and show them places that we love, and get out in small groups and connect with the landscape, because that's how we're going to build the future advocates, future leaders, and people who love these places. Often there's any number of barriers to first going out, but as soon as that people get out there, they understand it. That's the beauty of our public lands. I've led so many trips with kids, paid and unpaid, and sometimes just being that person who gets up at 5:30 to cook breakfast for a few folks is what allows them to have a great day, and what's ultimately going to allow them to be people who are passionate about that place. And I have countless examples of kids that I have now seen grow into park rangers and advocates. And it all begins with just a helping hand, getting them out to that place and showing them a thing they love. And I think it's easy.
Well, awesome. Well, hey, Thank you, and thank you for your time, Andres. That's really appreciate everything. And so everyone else, thanks for joining us tonight on the second Tune In Tuesday of the year. The next one we have is March 2nd, on Tuesday, March 2nd, with Jesse Hankins, the wildlife biologist from the BLM on the monument. He's actually got some very, very interesting, very new stuff that's coming out. And I'll give a teaser. It's about grizzly bears on the monument, which is kind of a new thing, something we're going to be interested to see how that plays out in the next little bit. And then a couple of projects that we have this year working with the BLM with wildlife on the monument. So hopefully you guys will join us then. But again, thank you guys very much for being here tonight. And Andres and Tim, thank you guys very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you all for joining. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Take care, everyone. Have a good night.